Hey guys, Jordan here, and today I want to talk about rejection and how to handle it both in sales and in business in general. So this video isn't just geared around digital marketing, but actually all industries. Now before we get into it, my nose is a bit red and I sound a bit nasally today. I've got man flu at the moment, but the show's got to go on, so let's get into the bulk of this video. So rejection, it's something that none of us enjoy receiving, but actually all of us have experienced at some point within our lives, whether that's in relationships, in job hunting and interviews, or even loans and credit cards, things like that. We have all experienced it at some point. And what we need to understand about rejection is it's almost completely unavoidable in so many aspects of our life. And it's how we bounce back from rejection that really, really matters. Now, you've got to think about it in sales. It is unavoidable. If every single prospect we reached out to, if every single sale we tried to close said yes, there'd be so many more millionaires in the world. Everyone would have a successful business. We can't always have everything that we want. The only difference between a successful business and someone who gives up too early is their ability to be resilient and handle rejection and not take no for an answer. But rejection hurts the most when you have nothing to fall back on. That is when rejection really hurts. I mean, look at relationships. If your wife leaves you, if your husband leaves you, it hurts the most when you feel that loss. You feel like, what am I going to do? They were the only person within my life, and that's why it hurts the most. And same again with sales. If you're working on a big prospect and that prospect drops out and you've kind of already mentally prepared yourself to make that sale, you're planning how you're going to spend that money, when they pull out and you've got nothing to fall back on, it really, really hurts because you feel like you actually lost money that you didn't even earn in the first place. And I have a term for this. I call it prospect complacency. It's the inability to keep your pipeline full when you have your heart set on one sale, when there's a sale on the horizon and you're putting all your eggs in that one basket, which is the worst thing you can do. And I came across this in my first sales role before I launched my digital marketing agency. And I was sat in the sales meeting in my training, and the sales manager at the time said to me, Jordan, if you are going to be successful in business and in sales, you need to understand two things. You need to understand how to handle a no, and you need to understand that you need to always keep a hot, bubbling pool of leads on the go at all times. And at the time I thought, this is just like some sales jargon. I didn't know what he was talking about until it really sunk in about 2 months down the line after working with that company. Now, just so you understand what I used to do for them, I used to sell advertisement packages in magazines, so double page spreads, full page spreads, quarter page adverts to large construction companies over in the Middle East. And I landed a massive deal on my third ever month. And this was going to make about £100,000 in profit for this business. And I was going to get a very, very big commission check for it. I was working until 10 p.m. every single night, like doing loads and loads of overtime to make sure I could sell as many advertisement packages as possible and get as much commission as I could. Now, when it came down to the last minute, when payment started coming through and the business was meant to be closed up, I had a message from the CEO one morning when I came in, and he pulled the plug on the project. And it hit me like a ton of bricks because I had absolutely nothing lined up. Now, in my head, I was celebrating. Every night I was coming home, I was boasting to my family, my friends, I've made X amount of sales today. I've done this, I've done that. And I was excited and I was planning that commission that I was going to get. And then that sale pulled through and I had nothing to fall back on, which meant that I had absolutely no commission for the following couple of months. And it really, really hit me hard. And then I understood when the sales manager reminded me, Jordan, where is your hot, bubbling pool of leads? And I didn't have one because my mind was set on that one particular sale. And this didn't just affect me for the short term, but this affected me for weeks and weeks and weeks because my motivation just dropped into the ground. I had absolutely no motivation to get more sales, and it took me months to pick myself back up. And yes, I made loads more sales then, and I made sure that I always had my bubbling pool of leads. And I see this same thing happening all of the time in social media marketing. People will launch a digital marketing agency, do their first couple of cold calls. Some people will get rejected on them cold calls and then get bummed out and then not make calls again for another week or so. But some people will actually arrange their first ever meeting. So they'll get their first ever meeting, they're excited for it, they're preparing for it. But in the meantime, they've stopped making cold calls because they're just focused on that one meeting. And if they get to that meeting and they get rejected, they're completely bummed out and suddenly their cold calling script doesn't work. Suddenly their meeting strategy doesn't work. The same meeting strategy that's made loads of other people tens and tens of thousands of pounds, but it doesn't matter because they've had one rejection and all of a sudden it's the end of the world. and they got to give up and all of their motivation is gone. And what this actually boils down to is not the point that they were rejected once, it's the point they didn't have anything else lined up. They had nothing else in the pipeline. So the absolute best way to ensure that you don't get bummed out when you get rejection is to have a backup and is to keep your pipeline full at all times. So when you set meetings with business owners, don't just think, oh, I've got one meeting this week, that's great. Set 5 meetings this week, okay? So if 2 of them go tits up, you've still got 3 to fall back on. And then you're not gonna be worried about rejection. You're not gonna be thinking, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm not gonna be able to secure this business. It's not gonna bother you because you've got so many other backups. Same again with cold calling. Don't get bummed out if you get a rejection on a cold call. It's completely natural, or via email. Just carry on reaching out to companies, be resilient and accept that rejection is inevitable and use it as a learning curve. Now, rejection, we can look at it and we can be like, okay, what are the reasons for us being rejected? Sometimes we're just going to get rejected for absolutely no reasons. Circumstances completely out of our control. The business or the prospect wasn't right for us, and that might come down to your prospecting issues, or maybe we said something wrong. But look at it objectively and think, what could I have done differently? What could I have done differently, and what can I change next time? Learn from it, move on from it, and use those lessons that you learned on your new prospects. But absolutely always make sure you have your hot, bubbling pool of leads, and trust me, you're not going to be worried about it. I mean, that's why we're so hurt in relationships. If our wife leaves us, our husband leaves us, or whatever, we're bummed out because we've got nothing else lined up. The beauty of sales and in business is we're allowed to cheat. We're allowed to cheat on our partners because we can have loads and loads and loads of sales on the go at the same time. That's why relationships hurt, because we don't have someone else lined up, or at least we shouldn't have someone else lined up. But in sales, we can line up 20 different partners and we can just fall back on them. And that's the beauty of this. It shouldn't be the same rejection. It shouldn't be that same pain. You should be able to push back because you should make sure that you always have something else lined up. So I don't want to carry on rambling on, guys. This is honestly so important. And this is what separates successful business owners from unsuccessful business owners, the people that give up when they have a first rejection, their second rejection, because they have nothing else in their pipeline. So don't be that person. Make sure your hot bubbling pool of leads is always bubbling and there's loads in there. So yeah, I hope you got loads and loads of value from this video, guys. If you did, please do share it with somebody else who you think will too. And I'll be back again next week. Cheers, guys.